Ducks fans, are you ready? You are listening to the Ducks and Pucks podcast with your hosts, Mike Walters and Eddie Jones. This is the number one home for Anaheim Ducks talk and analysis. Here we go.
Welcome to the show. This is your host, Mike Walters, along with my co-host, Eddie Jones, and we have a great show for you this week. Lots of news with the Ducks. A trade was made this last week. So we're going to talk about that, obviously, and how it affected the team. We've got a couple games to cover, the Blues, Columbus, Nashville contests, a little bit of controversy in some of those games as well. So we'll go into some of that and fan questions. And, of course, we'll get you all caught up to date on the injuries and whatnot that happened at practice, or at least the injury updates and whatnot. So with that, we will go back, though, first to the Blues game. The Ducks came off the game against Chicago, which we talked about in the last show, and of course we're not going to revisit that. But after they got blown out in that game, they took on the Blues, and they ended up beating one of the best teams in the league. They actually scored first in this game, Antoine Vermette in the first period, Kevin Waugh, and then Vermette again. The Ducks built a 3-0 lead. Looked like they were going to coast until about the final 4 minutes of the game. St. Louis got a couple goals in there, and the Ducks held on, and they won this one 3-2, Eddie. But overall, a very good effort by the Ducks after losing to Chicago.
Yeah, and you know, I think they caught the Blues sleeping a little bit in this game. I mean, they got out of them early with the Vermette goal, and they really played a solid, first 60 minutes first 40 minutes, and then until the third period. The Blues kind of woke up late in the third, and Brodziak got a couple late goals, but it wasn't enough. But yeah, I mean, I think it was a solid effort. Vermette had a good game in this one. He had 2 goals. I think Kevin Waugh had another strong game. He's been arguably, this year's Andre Kasha, and that was something we were talking about before the podcast, that, he's been very surprising in the impact he's had in the few games that he's played so far. But, I think it was a strong effort. We're all disappointed coming off the game against Chicago, and you're coming, off a bad loss like that, and you're coming in and playing against the best team in the Western Conference, and not only are you playing the best team, but you're playing them on the road as well. So it's always tough. But I think it was a solid effort, a good rebound game, and a good 2 points for the Ducks in this one.
Yeah, they played well. They didn't give up too many shots. I mean, they still gave up 39, but it wasn't in the 40s or the 50s. The Ducks did score 2 power play goals. St. Louis did not score any in this one. The Ducks won the faceoff battle by a little over 2% here. But overall, the Ducks did well. The only really bad thing that happened in this game, Eddie, and as we talk about with the injuries, is Silfverberg had an upper body injury, did not finish the game, and obviously didn't play in as we'll talk about in the other games as well. So, that was probably the downside of that night, Eddie. But the Ducks held on and won this game 3-2.
Yeah, and it seems to never end, really. I mean, right when we think everybody's coming back healthy, pretty much everybody but Eves, Getzlaf, and Kesler were ready to go. And then, of course, another guy from the top 6 gets injured in Silfverberg, and he hasn't played since that game. So, it looks like that he's going to be coming back soon, and hopefully, we can finally get to a point where everybody on this team is healthy and we can start winning games. I think it's great that the Ducks are still sitting around 500 with all these injuries that they've had to top players. But, at some point they've got to catch a break, and everybody's got to come back and be 100% healthy.
And that's what we're hoping. I mean, we'll get to some of the practice updates from today, but yeah, the Ducks are trying to fight it out. Their top forwards are been out, and it kind of necessitated this trade, Eddie, that happened the day after they won against the Blues. The trade was announced. The Ducks sent Sami Vatanen to the New Jersey Devils. They ended up getting Henrique Blandisi and a draft pick. The Ducks also sent a conditional pick, which we'll talk about those rules in a little bit there. But overall, a good trade from what most of you out there thought. We did a fan poll. 62% liked it. A handful of you thought maybe too early to tell, and then a small percentage didn't like it. But overall, it seems like everybody liked the trade. And we'll talk about the other couple of games coming up, but it seemed to be paying some dividends already. What did you think about this trade, Eddie? Initial thoughts as the Ducks sent Sami Vatanen away, but picked up a couple more forwards as the Ducks' depleted lineup has continued this season.
Well, this is the trade that everybody's really been waiting for, right? I mean, we've all speculated Vatanen was going to be traded pretty much up until the rumors about Fowler stopped. when he signed his contract. So I mean, it's been a long time coming. I think it's about time the Ducks finally traded from a position of strength to gain something. Especially right now, I guess getting in a position of weakness up front where they're missing Getzlaf and Kesler right now. So I think it's very good for them to go out and do that. It's a long time coming, and I think Henrique is a good addition. It looks like they were looking for a center. Rumors coming out after, and a lot of people discussing the fact that they were most likely in on Matt Duchene, but the price was too high. And then you look at some of the other names out there, Alex Galchenyuk, the price might have been a little bit too high on him as well. And then guys like James Van Riemsdyk and Evander Kane, well, they're wingers, so if the Ducks were looking for a center, then they were kind of out on those two. But I think it's a good trade. The only thing I'm worried about is kind of what Adam Henrique are we getting? Are we getting the guy who scored 30 goals and 50 points a couple seasons ago? Or are we getting the guy who's going to sit around 40, which still isn't bad, but I think he's looked impressive so far. For a center, he doesn't win an awful lot of faceoffs, but when Getzlaf, Kesler, and obviously Vermette are all in the lineup healthy, that's not going to matter too much. I think he brings some experience and some leadership to the locker room as well. And all in all, I think it's a good trade. It's obviously going to help the Ducks in the short term, especially with Getzlaf and Kesler out. But when they're all back, I mean, that's one of the top center groups in the league. When you've got Getzlaf at 1, Kesler 2, Henrique maybe 2 or 3 if you switch him and Kesler around, and then you've got Vermette, who would be at a 4th line center. I think that's one of the best center depth you can get in the NHL.
Yeah, I agree, and I think the center depth is a big issue. If you missed it, I was on the Blues podcast. There was not an official one, but the one called the Drop Podcast, and it was like a pregame one before this game against St. Louis, and talked exactly what you talked about. Is the host on there, Lance, asked me, what's the problem with the Ducks? What's the big issue as far as the injuries? And I said, well, it's the center position. I mean, obviously you had, like you said, Getzlaf and Kesler, your 1 and 2 punch are gone. I said that's the issue with the Ducks is, they're missing some forwards, of course, all around. But in the center position, it's been tough. You've had Grant and Wagner trying to fill in some big shoes. You've had, Vermette still there, and then you're juggling whoever's going to be on the 4th line. So the question was asked me, well, what are the Ducks, who are they going to trade? And of course I said Vatanen, and I said they need to trade for some centers. And so that's what the Ducks did. They went out in this trade and they traded Vatanen, and they ended up getting Henrique and Blandisi, who can actually play winger and center, which is a benefit for the Ducks because as you and I know, this lineup, if it's all healthy, which we'll kind of talk about later in the show, there's a lot of things that the Ducks can do with this lineup. Hopefully, if this injury bug can, please just go away. So I like this trade. I think it's a good trade. If you didn't understand the part about the conditional pick, the way that works out is if the Ducks do sign Henrique again in 2019 before the 3rd round pick, then that 3rd round pick ends up going to New Jersey. If it's after that, then the 3rd round pick in 2020 goes to New Jersey. So that's how that works out. And if the Ducks don't extend him, then they don't get a pick at all, getting sent back to New Jersey. So that's kind of the way it works out. I think it's a good deal. It didn't affect the cap in any situation either, Eddie. So overall, I think, of course, it is still early. It's only been a couple games, and we'll talk about those games against Columbus and Nashville. But I like what I'm seeing so far.
Yeah, and I think the underrated piece of this deal might be Joseph Blandisi. I mean, I think he is a guy that can be a bottom 6 forward in the NHL, kind of like a Steve Ott kind of grinder type player. And I think he's been pretty decent for the first 2 games. Obviously, he's been playing a little bit above, I think, his role. He's playing on the top line with Henrique and Perry for a bit in the last game. But, I think he's been good. He's not going to be a guy who's going to go out and put up 30, 40 points, most likely. He's going to be a gritty bottom 6 guy. But, it's a guy, another body that the Ducks can call up and play if there's any injuries or to fill a role or to fill a role if anybody is struggling as well. And I think it's great. I mean, he's always been a guy that's kind of perplexed me a bit. When he was playing in the OHL, I remember watching him back with the 67s when he was traded to Barrie, and he was just about a point per game guy in the OHL. Wasn't anything flashy, a bigger guy, so he's using his body. And then his last season, his overage season in the OHL, he gets put with a guy that we know pretty well in San Jose prospect Kevin Labanc, and he was with Calgary prospect Andrew Magniapane. And that line just lit up the OHL, and all of a sudden he's getting 112 points in 68 games, and I think that helped him a lot to get a role with the New Jersey Devils. But he's a guy that's always kind of amazed me in that fact that all of a sudden he's a point per game guy, and then he comes out and has a big season. So I think he's got some potential. I think it's a good piece for the Ducks to add as well, especially if they're going to make a push to make the playoffs this year. And again, getting that third-round pick as well. Anytime you can add a pick, I think it's great, especially in the first 3 rounds, and especially going into this draft as well this year. And then you've got the conditional one going back, which it all depends if Henrique signs. So, I think it was a good trade for both teams. I think the Ducks really addressed the need, and they traded from a position of strength, and then New Jersey as well, getting the puck-moving power play quarterback they've been looking for a while.
Yeah, exactly. New Jersey's kind of needed that for their, power play unit and defense in general. So, it looks like, early on, maybe a win-win for both teams. Obviously, we'll have to see how it all plays out. But with that, the Ducks then, play Columbus. As you talked about, Henrique thrust into the lineup. He's already put into, a top-line role in this game. Blandisi was on more of a bottom 6 role, and then later in the Nashville game went to a higher role. But in this game, he came in. Henrique did, and it looked like the Ducks, this game was kind of a rough game. We knew Columbus, was going to be a tough opponent. They ended up, scoring first in this game. The Ducks battled back. Cam Fowler scored, and, it just went back and forth. It looked like the Ducks were going to maybe, take the lead and hold on to it. As we've talked about before, Waz done pretty well. He scored in this game, but the Ducks couldn't hold that lead. It ended up being 2-2, and then they kind of had a little bit of a meltdown in the third period, and they ended up losing this game 4-2, Eddie. Kind of a hard-fought game. It looked like maybe the Ducks would try to get a point out of this one, but they couldn't get anything going on the power play, and they took a lot of penalties, a little bit of turnovers too in this one, and, it just kind of didn't work out after the second period.
Yeah, I think they just got kind of sloppy going into the third period, and, giving up that late goal to Josh Anderson. It was kind of a lucky bounce. It fell right to him in the slot, and he was able to shovel it past Gibson. But it's just it's disappointing. Like you said, I think they could have grinded out a point in this one, and to come out of it with nothing to show for it, it's pretty disappointing. But there's some positives to take away. You look at Adam Henrique, obviously making an impact in his first game with a nice little backhand stretch pass to Kevin Waugh to spring him on a breakaway. And again, a nice finish from Kevin Waugh, who's looked very impressive in his last 3 games. He almost pulled off a ridiculous move in that game against Nashville the other night as well. So he's been a bright spot for the Ducks. But it's tough. It's disappointing. I think they could have got a point out of this, and to come out of it with nothing, especially when the Ducks are looking for anything to get going right now. It's definitely disappointing.
Yeah, and I think the other part about that too, Eddie, is in net. Bobrovsky didn't even play in this game, so you thought the Ducks had a better chance with him out, but it just didn't quite work out. I think some of the stuff that kind of was a downfall was the specialty teams didn't quite work out. A little bit lackadaisical with the puck here and there. Giving it away a little bit too much, and unfortunately, that's just what did it in. I mean, this team's kind of been up and down. You see him against Chicago, and you're frustrated. Then you see him against the Blues, and you're like, okay, look at this team, the way they're playing with the depleted lineup, and then they go to Columbus, and of course, in this game, Silverberg was out in this one. Raquel was out. I think that's why part of this trade kind of worked out too, Eddie. Is you had all these people out already, and you have more people, and I think that's why Blandisi and Henrique, it was kind of good timing because they were able to come in and play while the Ducks continue to. I mean, you look at this lineup; they only have a couple top 6 forwards. It's crazy, and yet even though they lost, they still competed hard, and they've been competing hard every night.
Yeah, I mean, imagine this lineup tonight that night against Columbus if we didn't have Henrique and Blandisi in the lineup. I mean, with no Raquel and no Silverberg, you would have been looking at a top line of probably Grant again or Wagner at center with Richie and Perry or Cogliano and Perry, and then from there on, you've got a mix of some AHL guys, some fourth liners, and that's pretty much it. So it was a welcomed addition to have those guys in the lineup, and obviously it didn't pay dividends, but down the road when everybody starts coming back healthy and guys getting into the lineup, it's going to be nice to get the Ducks top players back and start hopefully winning games.
Yeah, absolutely. And after this game, unfortunately, the Ducks, they had to play Nashville. Right after that, they had Miller go in net. And this game had a lot of action. I mean, if you wanted to watch a game and you wanted to be entertained, this game, other than the outcome, of course, but it was pretty entertaining. You saw all kinds of stuff going on in this game. Nashville ended up scoring first in this one. Perry scored. Fowler scored. It looked like the Ducks, might go into this one getting 2 points. Then, of course, Nashville scores again. Both their goals I thought were quote unquote trash. I'm sorry, that's just the way I'm going to put it, and we'll go into it. But, anyways, they had to go to overtime. They lost in the shootout. Eddie, disappointing. Miller played a great game. Henrique had a goal, which we then found out was taken away. Now they gave to Perry, which is kind of odd. That was a little weird, but it didn't really matter in the outcome of this game. Henrique still got a point as far as getting an assist, so he's got a point in each of the games that he's played with the Ducks. But this was an entertaining game, but a little bit frustrating too, the way some of the calls went in this game, Eddie.
Yeah, and it was almost more street fight than hockey game at some points. It was definitely some bad blood left over from the playoff series last year, and this. Honestly, it might be a little bit biased, but this has to be, one of the most underrated rivalries in the NHL right now. Every game, these guys don't like each other. I think most of the Ducks and Ducks fans in general hate Philip Forsberg, and I think a majority of Preds fans hate Corey Perry, much like everybody else pretty much in the NHL. But yeah, it was a hard-fought game. We expect that between these two teams with the history between them. So it's nice to get the point, but it's leaves a bad taste in your mouth. You really wanted the win in this game, especially against Nashville, and I think it was a hard fought game. These ones are the tough ones to lose, especially when you lose it in a shootout. I think both teams battled very hard, and to lose that extra point that way is kind of depressing. But again, you got to look at Adam Henrique in this game. He played the most minutes of any Ducks forward. He played 21 minutes in this game and making an instant impact here. What we thought was his first goal as a Duck ends up going in off Corey Perry, and he gets his second assist. But he's made an immediate impact on this Ducks lineup, and obviously he's been thrust into a first-line center role. But you couldn't really ask for much more. Maybe the only thing you might want to ask from him, especially if he's going to be playing center, is to up the face-off win percentage just a little bit. But I can't complain. He's been great since coming over.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, he gets thrown into the top line center role, which I know surprised some of you out there, and didn't really surprise, I don't think, you and me so much, Eddie, because it's like, who else are you going to put up there? Wagner's been playing pretty good. Grant's been kind of hit and miss, but I figure you get a new toy, you gotta thrust him out there, especially with the way that the Ducks are shorthanded, So they put him out there, and I agree with you. I thought it was a very hard fought game. You saw Manson and McLeod go at it, a pretty even fight there. They were going for a long time. So if you didn't see that, I know we posted the video on that up on social media. So that was entertaining, and all the fights throughout the game, all the scrums. I think. Maybe some of them shouldn't have happened, but it's just the way it is. Like you said, the Ducks don't like the Sharks and the Kings, but you got to throw Nashville up there too in the top three, I would say, now of the teams that the Ducks just can't stand, and probably our fans can't stand, and their fans and vice versa. And like you said, they don't like Corey Perry, and we don't like flopping Forsberg, as I call him, because he flopped on that power play that they were awarded, which Nashville ended up getting the tying goal. I know some people felt that maybe Wagner shouldn't have, cross-checked him, but I just didn't like that call. And I think it's upsetting when a questionable call like that's made. You see Cogliano get completely interfered with on the sequence before. Nothing is called. And they call that penalty, and then they score the game-tying goal on that power play. And I think that was very frustrating. And you all saw how Randy Carlyle felt. We posted that GIF of him doing the diving motion a couple times, which – it pretty much sums it up for me. I think that's what was frustrating about the game is I felt like the Ducks should have won this one at least 2-1 and not even gone to overtime. And to have something like that happen, it's just unfortunate. I don't like it. I don't like the flopping. And a lot of, we watch this game. A lot of people don't do that kind of stuff. And to see him do that and fall down and smiling while it's happening because he knows he did it, it's embarrassing to me, and also the fact that he goes after and runs his mouth against all the Ducks and all that other stuff too. So it's just unfortunate. I just didn't like the way that it ended like that. I thought the Ducks deserved a much better fate. I thought they played a really, really solid game, just like they did against St. Louis, and they just came up short in the shootout, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think Forsberg's kind of becoming notorious for that a little bit, especially just from the games that we've seen in last year's playoff series and the few games we've seen this season again and last season in the regular season against the Ducks. And the Preds, and it's disappointing to see. Nobody likes to see that in the game anyway. But one thing I kind of want to ask you is a lot of people were up in arms about Nick Ritchie's stick getting thrown into the air out of his hands. I'm in the boat that I think a lot of people wanted a penalty. I'm in the opinion that I think Ritchie probably just needs to keep a better grip on his stick. But I kind of wanted to get your opinion on what you thought about that play, because it did lead to a Predators goal.
Yeah, well, I wrote about it in the game recap, and I wasn't happy about that play either, Eddie. I mean, I agree with you, though. I mean, yeah, if a guy's going to hit your stick, you've got to definitely have it be held secure. Of course, there's no doubt about that. And then what was kind of more frustrating on that play is obviously he does that. The puck comes back to Phila, and he scores, and same thing, kind of a frustrating thing. But then Ritchie goes and decks him, and then the whole melee happens. Nashville gets another power play. So it was just a bad sequence all the way around. I just thought it was unfortunate because a penalty most likely should have been called. I mean, he knocked the stick out of his hand. I agree with you. He probably should have held it a little bit tighter because he kind of seemed like he had kind of flung a little bit too easily out of his hand. But it's unfortunate. You see that, and then it's all about the sequence. One thing happens, and then right after that, another thing happens, and that upset me. Not as much as the second goal, like we talked about. I think that one was more upsetting. But both of their goals, to me, they shouldn't have counted. I just think if the refs make the right calls on the ice, then those plays wouldn't have happened. I mean, that's just the bottom line. They missed both those calls. I mean. That's it. They just did. I don't blame Ritchie for not holding a stick too tight. I don't blame Wagner for hitting Forsberg when he backs into him. I mean, are there things that they could have done a little bit better? Yeah, of course there are, definitely. But the way you look at that game, I don't know. I just think some of the tactics that Nashville uses is very annoying. Frankly, that's all I can really say, and that's why I was so happy when Pittsburgh beat them last year in the Stanley Cup, because I can't stand some of the things they do. And I know Pittsburgh's no angel either. I know they do some stuff too, but they just rub me the wrong way. They always have, and and obviously the Ducks, we've lost to them a couple times now in the playoffs, and the fans know that it's just getting old losing to Nashville. And when you see certain things like that happen, it's frustrating because it feels like in these games that they get away with a little bit more stuff, Eddie. In this game they had 4 power plays. The Ducks only had 2. And I know that power plays aren't even. They're not supposed to go, that way. And it sometimes goes one way or another. But it just seems like for some reason, whenever we play Nashville, they get away with little things like all the time. I don't know what it is, but it's just something that happens when we play them.
Yeah, and it's something we're gonna have to get used to, especially if the Ducks are gonna squeak into the playoffs this year. I mean, there's a good chance that they either play Nashville, and if there is a wild card spot, or if the Ducks end up advancing past the first and second round and playing them again. This is something we got to get used to seeing, especially because Nashville's most likely going to make the playoffs, and the Ducks maybe don't look like it right now, but if everybody comes back healthy, might squeak in and get a matchup against Nashville. So it's definitely something we have to get used to. And speaking of the playoffs as well, I think last podcast we were looking at this week and saying, can it get any worse after the Chicago game? You're going against the best team in the West. You're going against Columbus, who is one of the best teams in the East, and then you're going to play Nashville, who again is one of the best teams in the Western Conference. And I think we can't really be happy with the way the 3 games turned out. The Ducks get 3 out of 6 possible points. But I don't think you can be too disappointed. I think we're definitely pessimistic going into this 3-game stretch, and for them to come out with a win against the best team in the Western Conference and then stealing a point from Nashville, it's not too bad. I don't think it was that bad of a league, especially with a depleted lineup.
No, I agree with you. We talked about that. We were hoping, out of these 3 games, I think we said if they get 2, we'd be, we wouldn't be surprised. But if they got more, we would be not ecstatic, but a little bit happy. So they got 3 out of 6. They got half the points, so it wasn't too bad. I think the biggest thing is just they're going to play Nashville one more time, and like you said, they're a good chance to meet them in the playoffs. And Randy Carlisle talked about this too after the game. That we're just going to have to play smarter against them, and I know that's not, easier said than done, basically, but that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to really watch the little shenanigans that go on with this Nashville team, and they're just going to have to be better than that. And it's unfortunate, but that's what they're going to have to do, I think, if they do meet this team in the playoffs. And I know a lot of people ask us, hey, are the Ducks still going to make the playoffs? When are they going to get healthy? Those are a lot of the fan questions we get. And the Ducks are looking to get healthier. I mean, they're talking about Getzlaf and Kesler. They've been skating. They're hoping that they're going to come back, not on this road trip, but the next one. So that's a huge positive right there, Eddie, because like you said, we get them back and we can kind of look at this lineup. Obviously, there's some stuff going on. We'll talk about some updates on some of the other players that came out of practice as well today. But if you're going to look at this team and making a push for the playoffs, the second half, turning it on after Christmas, which is kind of what we were kind of, used to with this team. But you're talking about Getzlaf, Kesler, Henrique, and Vermette as your centers. I mean, that's pretty damn good for your 4 centers. And then obviously we'll play around with the forwards and where they're going to go. We think it would be Caggiano, Kesler, and Silfverberg back together. And then it's really a issue of who they're going to put with Getzlaf and Henrique, if they're going to do Getzlaf and Perry or Getzlaf and Raquel, and then most likely Getz and maybe Richie together, and then you'd have Casse, Raquel, and Henrique together, something like that maybe is another possibility. And then, of course, the fourth line is just going to be a mix. There's so many players right now. The Ducks have a lot more depth on the forward spot when they're healthy. So I think this lineup's going to be really, really strong, Eddie. I like the trade. I think if we get just even getting Getzlaf and Kesler back. It also looks like Raquel might come back. He practiced today. The Ducks are going to play Vegas, so he may be in on that game. So things are looking a little bit up, Eddie, and I think in a couple weeks we really got to see how this team's going to do. But I'm really hopeful they're going to look strong, especially down in the center spot.
Yeah, things will start to look better when everybody eventually gets back and is 100% healthy. And, as for the lineup, I think that probably becomes a little bit more clear in the games leading up to Getzlaf's return. I think everybody most likely believes that the Kesler line is going to come back together, and Kesler, Caggiano, and Silfverberg. And then from there, I think the Ducks now have a few games before Getzlaf comes back where they can really look to find some chemistry with Adam Henrique and whoever's going to play on his wing. You would assume from the reports, if Raquel is ready to go against Vegas, we could see Adam Henrique, Perry, and Raquel on a line together. And, if the chemistry sticks there, that might be a line that we see when Getzlaf comes back. And then the guys who are left over, either Richie, Kasha, Kevin Waffy, if he's end up still with the team, those are guys who might get put together with Getzlaf. It's unfortunate that Patrick Eves is out and most likely out for the rest of the season, because that's a guy we would easily just plug in on a line with Ryan Getzlaf. So I think Getzlaf's going to probably be put with kind of whoever's left over because he's coming into the lineup at a time where the Ducks are going to probably have the Kesler line together, probably have somebody who's going to be playing well with Adam Henrique, and then Getzlaf kind of gets to pick up the pieces and play with whoever. But he's pretty good at that. I mean, you can put him with anybody, he's going to find them the puck, so I'm not too worried about that. But yeah, it's definitely exciting. Getting all these guys back healthy. The Ducks aren't in a great position, but they're not that far out of it. We talked about how the Kings were struggling a couple podcasts ago, and all of a sudden now, they're on a 5-game win streak, and they're clear at the top of the Pacific Division. Then you've got Vegas right behind them, who are still playing well. But other than that, the Ducks are right now, they're 2 points behind Calgary, who are losing tonight, so that game in hand will be lost. They're 3 points behind Vancouver, and they're 3 points behind San Jose, who has a game in hand but lost to Washington tonight. So they're not that far out of it. They're about 2 games out of third place in the Pacific Division right now. So if we get everybody back healthy, there's definitely a chance.
I agree. That's the key, getting everybody back healthy. Now, some of the other questions kind of tied into this is some questions about Richie from Joshua and another Eddie, not you, obviously, but they're asking some questions about him and whether or not what's going on with his performance. If we're going to trade him. We have another question too. Let's see here from Michael, not me, another Michael, of course, but he's asking if the Ducks will make a trade before the trade deadline. So we kind of have these questions about Richie, his performance. He's not doing as well. Will the Ducks make another trade? I mean, I don't really see it, Eddie. I don't. I just don't see them making one pending. I hate to say it, knock on wood, more injuries, but I don't see them doing it. I mean, I think Richie maybe he's not doing what we've expected in the season so far, but I think with what we've got and what's going on now, I don't really see the Ducks doing anything until they get closer to that trade deadline.
Yeah, and in regards to Richie, I really don't see any situation where he's moved. I mean, the Ducks have him as an RFA, so they've got him locked down and can easily re-sign him to a new contract at the end of this season, but. The only way I see him maybe moved is if the Ducks are looking to make another big splash. They might be able to package him with somebody else, either another prospect or with another player. So they could package him with somebody to bring in a better player. That's the only situation I see him moved. As for another deal in general, I think that's something we probably see at the trade deadline. There'll most likely be some names available that are familiar with the Ducks, especially David Perron is a guy that could be available if Vegas decides to move him. I believe he's an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. I think if any deal gets made, it's most likely a rental deal. And what we saw with Patrick Eaves when they brought him over from Dallas, I believe it was last season. So that's the only thing I really see getting done right now. I think they wait till everybody comes back and is 100% healthy. I don't see, barring any injury, any trade made either on defense or in net. I think the only addition probably comes with in maybe a trade for a top 6 or top 9 forward at the deadline, depending on how the team is performing.
And with that, what do you think about Richie? I mean, he's played in 24 games this season, 3 goals, 5 assists, -8 on ice rating. What are you disappointed in the way he's played? Do you think he should be doing more? I mean, obviously when he first came up, he was the big talk of the town for the Ducks. We really thought he was going to do, extremely well, and here he is, 8 points in 24 games in this season.
Yeah, and I think it's disappointing because the fact that he was part of that trade that the Ducks made with the Ottawa Senators, so they ended up getting a 10th overall pick, and we were all excited that they're having such a high pick. And you go and get Nick Ritchie, and at the time, it was a good pick. I think everybody was excited to see what he could bring to the Ducks lineup, but it's been kind of a disappointing run so far. I think every season we've kind of expected him to take that next step offensively, and he really hasn't done it. And that's kind of another season like that for him this year. And, I don't think it's time to trade him. He's only 21. He's a big guy, and there's plenty of time for him to develop. He might be a late bloomer and come into his own. And he could be a Patrick Maroon type player for the Ducks down the road. But, no, it's definitely disappointing, I think, just due to the fact that he was such a high draft pick. 10th overall, you expect a lot from those guys. And for him to not be, a constant contributor for this Ducks team is definitely disappointing.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I think we do expect a little bit more out of him. So I'm hoping that is the case and he does pick it up, obviously in the next couple of months, or else maybe we will see something at the trade deadline. I mean, I don't think it's likely, but if he continues to kind of underwhelm, then maybe one that you see in there in the mix, at least maybe in some of the discussions. Another question I thought was interesting too is we talked about the lineups and the Ducks getting these players back, but Tom asked this question, do you think that it's going to be an advantage later on that the Ducks have all these injuries, i.e. basically that, a lot of these guys aren't going through a grueling 82-game season, they work out whatever their issues are and they come back healthy, Getzlaf and Kesler. Some of them have been, obviously in and out and whatnot, but what are your thoughts on that? Do you think getting a bunch of these players back, maybe they're a little bit more rested, You think that'll help the Ducks come, the second half of the season? Or, I mean, it's going to help no matter what, obviously, getting these guys back. But do you think the rest is going to help it even more, I guess?
Yeah, to be honest, I didn't actually think of it that way, but when you put it in, put it into terms like that, I think it can definitely be beneficial if the Ducks end up getting into the playoffs and look to make a long run. I mean, we look at last year and after the playoffs, it came out how many guys had little injuries or bigger injuries that they've been dealing with throughout the playoffs. I mean, specifically, obviously, Kesler, who needed surgery, and he was continuing to play for the Ducks, and then Lindholm and Vatanen needed shoulder surgery, and they were still playing. So I think it can be beneficial. By the time Kesler gets into the lineup, he's probably going to have a little bit more than half the season to play, and then obviously into playoffs, and he'll have some time to get adjusted and get going, and then by the time he's really on the grind, he'll have about 30 games under his belt going into the playoffs. So I think it can definitely help. Guys are going to be less tired. They're not going to have to deal with that full 82 game schedule. And when it's your top two centers, the guys who are going to be playing the most minutes for you, I think that can be beneficial in the long run.
Yeah, and I concur. I think it is going to help out the Ducks getting these guys back. Some of them not, obviously Kessler not playing any of the games. Some of them only playing in a couple. I think it's going to be huge. It's going to, make this team be a little bit fresher down the stretch. And like you said, going into the playoffs, we saw, especially against Nashville, our favorite team, some of the injuries and whatnot, really hampered them in those last couple games when they got eliminated. So it's definitely a plus. And, with that, the Ducks, they practiced today, had some more updates and whatnot. We found out that Raquel was practicing. Looks like he may play against Vegas. Kosala got sent down to San Diego as a result. Silverberg, he skated. We don't know for sure if he's going to play or not, but that's a good sign. And the only negative, really, Eddie, it keeps on happening, but Lindholm was reported with a quote-unquote upper body issue. So I don't know if that's an injury or what that is, but he has some kind of an issue. Probably won't know more until close to game time against Vegas. And that's who the Ducks are going to face off, coming up this week. They got it's not going to be another easy week, Eddie, but they're going to play Vegas, Ottawa, and Minnesota. We already lost to Vegas. Ottawa and Minnesota are kind of so-so in the mix, but still not going to be an easy week by any stretch.
No, and I think the toughest game this week is the game against Vegas. You're going and playing them at home where they're arguably one of the best, if not the best, home team in the National Hockey League this season. They're 10-2 at T-Mobile Arena. And they've been pretty much unbeatable there. So it's going to be a tough game. We probably see Gibson go in that game and Miller come in on the back-to-back at home against the Senators. And Senators are a struggling team, and really they've, a trade that was supposed to help them has almost hindered them. They've been struggling since getting Matt Duchene. They've been 2-7-1 in their last 10 games and got hammered 5-0 by the Winnipeg Jets the other night. So I think you definitely see Gibson go in that game against Vegas, and then Miller in against the Sens, and then probably Gibson again against Minnesota. But I think it'll be nice to break up this road trip that they've had, play a couple games at home, get a little bit of rest, and then prepare for that long 6-game road trip right before Christmas.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and looking at these 3 games, I'm hoping the Ducks get 4 points out of this 3-game stretch. That's what I'm hoping. I mean, Vegas, I don't know. I mean, like you said, it's just tough. And then they're going to Vegas. So we'll see how that game goes. Ottawa and Minnesota, maybe they have a chance. They can at least pull out 3 or 4 points in those 2 games. They do have one more game at home against Carolina. And then, like you said, another rough road trip. They're going to have St. Louis, Washington, New Jersey, the Rangers, the Islanders, and Pittsburgh. So the key coming up, though, on that road trip is it sounds like Getzlaf and Kesler will be back. So if they are indeed ready to go at the beginning of that road trip, that'll be huge because we'll really see how this team, I think, will go. And the big thing now is just trying to monitor, I guess, Lindholm is what we're going to have to see. But, as far as the rest of the Ducks look, they're getting more and more of these players back, Eddie. Things are looking up. Like you said, they're hovering around 500, and that's what you and I talked about way back when the season started with whatever the injuries were back at the beginning of the season. It changes every day, but we knew the Ducks were shorthanded going into the season, and you and I said, hey, if they can hang out, till the holiday time and be, in the 500 range, they'd still be within striking distance of the playoffs. and have a good chance to make a run. And like we said, we don't care if they win the Pacific Division, whoop-de-doo. But I like what I'm seeing so far. I like the trade. I think it's beneficial. It's going to help this team. And I just think it can only get better. Even despite everything that this team has faced so far this season, the fact that they're still competing, they've only had a couple games where they had some ugly losses, Chicago, Florida, and whatnot. Overall, you have to be proud of this team and the way that they've just fought through this season, facing, more adversity than any team so far this season, and probably, many other seasons as well.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how this team can perform once 100% healthy. We haven't seen a game this season where everybody's been in the lineup, obviously because Kesler has been out since the beginning of the season. But it'll be nice to see. Well, I mean, I guess they won't be 100% healthy because Patrick Eaves is still out of the lineup. But it'll be nice to see pretty much everybody in the lineup and really seeing what this team can do. Because once everybody's healthy, this is a scary team to face. And we had some high expectations for this team going into the regular season, and then obviously all the injuries hit. It's been pretty disappointing so far. But like you said, I think the fact that they're still sitting around 500, they're only about 3 to 4 points out of the third spot in the Pacific Division. And to be honest, like you said, we don't really care if they win the Pacific Division this year. It's a long battle to really get back and beat the Kings and the Golden Knights out of the spots that they're in right now. But, it's all about getting in the playoffs right now. And hopefully things are turning around, and by the time this next road trip rolls around, we can get Getzlaf back in the lineup, we can get Kesler back in the lineup, and hopefully no more injuries occur throughout the rest of the season, and the Ducks can make a good push for the playoffs.
Yeah, that's just going to be the key. It's just getting healthier, and I think, like we talked about, the trade that they've done so far, we like what we see from Henrique and Blandisi. It's worked out, so far. I mean, obviously, it's only been a couple games. It's still early, but you got to like what you're seeing from both of them, the effort on the ice, and it's obviously worked out. I mean, they got a point in 2 games, but you definitely see the way the Ducks are playing, and overall, it's been very good. So, I applaud Murray for making the trade. We talked about, maybe something having to happen. We thought it was going to have to be a little bit closer to the trade deadline, but it came a little bit earlier. And I think it was great timing with all this different injuries going on, especially this last week with, Silverberg going out. Now it looks like he's coming back. Just different things, trying to plug this lineup because, trying to figure out who's playing where on any given, night is just crazy with this injury mess that's just happened this whole season. But I think there's a lot to look forward to, and I think the trade will be beneficial. The Ducks are going to go into these next games. Like we said, Vegas is a tough game, but then they got 3 games at home. So overall, it's looking good. I like what we've seen so far, the way that they've competed. And, you just got to wish that the team stays healthy, Eddie, and that's the key. And then we get this team back. I think we're going to be ready to rock for the second half of the season.
Yeah, and I think going into this week, we got to be cautiously optimistic. This is going to be still a tough week. You are playing some slumping teams in the Senators and the Hurricanes, but I think the key for the Ducks this week is to get those points at home. You've got 2 games at home this week, and then the last game at home against Carolina before the road trip is on Monday. So we'll probably be back on Sunday with the podcast, so it'll be before that. But it's going to be important for them to pick up points at home. They haven't been great at home, and a lot of that can be attributed to the fact that this team has been decimated with injuries all season. But they're sitting at 6-7-2 right now at home, and that's definitely got to improve if they're going to make a push.
Absolutely. And like you said, we'll be back in about a week. With that, stay up to date on all the stuff. We post all the articles and keep doing poll questions and whatnot. And we'll see you then. Let's go Ducks.